The video on making a roast vegetable stock cube or paste. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to make a cube of it or I'm going to make a paste first. So I did a bit of faffing around and made a fake Marmite, Vegemite type of thing without the yeast, and it was just really reduced down vegetable stocks, a different one, so like a plain stock which hadn't had roasted vegetables in, and then a roasted vegetable stock, and then I made a mushroom stock as well. Combined them together, reduced it down, then added some caramelized onions and made like a paste. I'll show you actually. It's delicious. I had it on toast yesterday, so it's like that. We'll get to know. We need a spoon as well now. I'll use the end of that spoon. So I made this paste. So it is roasted flavoured, it's vegetable-y, it's umami. I put loads of salt in it, so it's kind of quite a little bit salty, but it's delicious on toast with butter. Absolutely delicious. So that was that. So we're kind of going to do that again. So we'll make some more of that as part of this video to kind of calculate how much of ingredients that we need and how much salt we put in to make it now salty. And then with the rest of the stock, what we'll do is we'll see about making a, well, we'll see how that tastes without salt in it, the like fake Marmite type of thing, and then we'll see if we can actually turn some into a stock cube type of thing or a paste. See how that works out as well. Because in a stock cube you want liquid, you don't want it to be a puree of vegetables. So you kind of want the intense flavour of the stock, but in like a solid form. I'm not making much sense. Much better just to kind of like crack on, maybe. So we've got, this is for the roast vegetable stock. We've got a kilo of carrots. We've got a head of celery. How much is that? I reckon about 500 grams. I've got some more because that's not all I'm going to make. So how much is this way? Yeah, so like 500 grams worth of celery and then 500 grams worth of onions. Now, when you're making stocks, some people put the skins in the stocks. I've seen this done. I wouldn't advise it, to be honest. I tried to make a stock just out of onion skins, and it was really kind of quite bitter. So my advice, don't put onion skins in your stock. If you want to add some colour to your stock, naturally the onion skins will give it a colour. Use red onions, and the flavour will leach out of the red onions. I used red onions in a stock rather than that. So these are going to get roasted in the oven. So 225 centigrade in the oven. I'm not putting any oil on the sheets because I don't want any oil in the stock. So if we roast them, plain roast them, we'll alleviate that oil. So we're just looking for the caramelized kind of flavour. And then we're going to make a plain vegetable stock. Oh, yes. So then, because we don't want too much of a roast vegetable flavour, we don't want it to dominate. So we're going to make another stock out of, without roasting the vegetables, just out of the celery, carrots and the onion. I'm not going to put any herbs, I'm not going to put any garlic in. Because we're going to juice things down a lot, to put any herbs in, it'd be really dangerous that it would be overly herby in flavour. So we're going to make a plain stock out of these, and then therefore we'll get the vegetable flavour, but not overpowering with the roast vegetable flavour. And then I'm going to make a mushroom stock as well. So that's just a simple case of boiling up some mushrooms in some water, pureeing it, and then filtering the stock, filtering the mushrooms out of the water, and then we'll combine all those together, those three stocks together, reduce them down separately, and then we'll combine them together and then add them some caramelized onions and kind of see how that kind of tastes. Yes, that's what we'll do for that. So how much mushrooms we're going to do? Don't want it to be overly mushroomy. I think 500 grams worth of mushrooms. Yeah, and it's just simple case. What we'll do, we'll just put them in some, smash them up, wash them, crunch them up. We don't need to chop them. Just we're going to puree them and then boil them up in some water, and then that'll be that. So we'll do some boiling, we'll do some roasting, we'll make some stocks, and then I'll be back when I'll show you how roasted the vegetables are, and then be combining and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, we have roasted the vegetables. So the celery has dried out, the oven's gone crispy. That'll be fine, I'm not worried about that. And the carrots just done as roasted as I'd want, but the onions are ready, so we're just going to make the stock. And then we're going to put some water on this tray just to get rid of just to lift off all those caramelized juices. That's the sugars coming out of the onions and wanting to caramelize. So it goes onto there like that. Then there's just a bit of water on the tray just to loosen all those good, juicy, nice bits. And then we'll carry on making stock. Probably put in 2 litres of water. This is the 500 grams worth of mushrooms, which I put in 1 litre of water. So we'll puree that down to extract as much flavour out of the mushrooms as possible in about half an hour or so. That's had about an hour, something like that. And then strain out the liquid, and then that will get us the mushroom stock, which will then reduce down by to a quarter of its original amount of liquid, and then we'll kind of see how that turns out. And then we've got the vegetable stock on the back, which is just about come up to the boil. So there is, well, I've made a double amount of vegetable stock because I need it for something else, but there's 6 litres of water in there. So we'll cook that for a couple of hours, then we'll puree it, and then we'll strain it. We'll see how that turns out. This roasted vegetable stock will have that cooking for a couple of hours, something like that. And we'll do the same with that. What we'll do is we'll puree up, no, we'll strain out the stock, and then we'll add more water. We'll bring that back up to the boil, puree that, and then strain it to extract as much of the caramelized flavour and flavour, caramelized flavour and flavour from the vegetables, and do it that way. Actually, you can see here, this is the first tray that had on the carrots and the celery, and we've just had some water in it in the oven, and it's just lifted any kind of flavour and caramelisation that we've got on the tray. So that can go in with there. So I've already put 1 litre of, really should make sure I'm putting 2 litres of liquid in, sure. So I'll just use my measuring jug off camera, and we'll see how much volume of liquid we've got in there, and we'll do like a proper scientific experiment. My things that I cook are never scientific experiments, not properly anyway. So there's 300 millilitres of liquid, so there's already 1 litre of liquid in there, so that was some nice colour. And then we'll do the same with the other tray. You don't need to see that, it's a bit boring. Let's go through what I'm going to do. So the roast vegetable stock is ready. It's a cracking colour. Now there is some flavour still left in those vegetables, so we need to extract that flavour. So how are we going to do that? Are we going to puree it first? And then no. What we're going to do is this. So we've got cloth over, so strainer, bowl underneath, well, jug underneath, and then a cloth over the top. We need to strain it to get out impurities. Better to do it now than later. So we'll just strain that just to collect any bits of debris, and then we're going to add some more water, reboil it, puree it. We just need that spoon, and then we'll be able to extract as much flavour out as possible. You don't have to do that, but I just kind of think for a little bit more work you're going to get more flavour. And you'll see as well, so you can see the colour of that stock there like that. That's the vegetable, that's just a normal vegetable one. So that out of the way, so we don't knock it over. And then I measured 1 litre, so 1 litre worth of liquid in there, like that. And we'll get this in. Give it all a puree up, which will extract out flavour from these vegetables. You see the leeks? No, not the leeks. The celery is pumped up again. So it nicked a bit of flavour. So you can see what I'm doing there. So just puree that up and then squeeze it, strain it, and then squeeze all the excess juice out of the pulp, and then we'll get as much flavour out of that as possible. Going to do the same process with this one. We're just going to puree it down. I'm not going to add any more liquid to it. Guess there will be enough liquid in there, and then we'll be able to extract out more flavour from the vegetables. How do these taste? There's no point adding more water to that after we've drained off the stock and then pureeing it like we're going to do with that one. We'll just puree it and strain it off. And then what I mean by squeezing out, so this is the mushroom stock which I've pureed into the cloth, and then we're just going to group the cloth together and give it a squeeze, and we'll get more liquid out. And generally lots of flavours locked into the mushrooms, so the more liquid you squeeze out of the mushrooms, the more flavour we'll get. So when we're squeezing things out, same process for all three of these different stocks. Move it around. What happens is the vegetables that are right next to the cloth, they're going to squeeze all their juice out, and then but the vegetables on the inside will still be wet. So what we need to do is we need to keep moving the vegetables around in the bag, squeezy, and then we'll get more liquid out, whereas we just try and squeeze it in one go like that, and squeeze, there's still be lots of liquid left in there, but you get the idea of what I'm doing. So we'll repeat that process with both these vegetable stocks, and then we're back when we've got the three stocks, and then we'll see about reducing them and things. So you might think that it's not worth adding more water to the roasted vegetables and pureeing it and straining it, but you do get more colour, and taste wise not a bad stock. Not as nice as this. See, that's a lovely colour and a lovely flavour, but we still get second rate stock, so it's worth doing. Right, so what's that? Oh yeah, we might as well taste this mushroom stock over here. Let me just wash the spoon off in there. So this is the mushroom stock, so we'll give that a taste. Very mushroomy, so that's going to make a nice stock. I've forgotten if I can't remember if I've said this. The reason I'm making them all separately instead of just one pot, pureeing it down and then squeezing all the juice out, the reason I'm doing it in separate pots is that you're going to lose flavour into the vegetables. All the vegetables are going to soak up all the other vegetables' flavours. So, and the only problem with that is that we will lose the sweet vegetableness of the plain vegetable stock. We will lose some of the mushroominess of the mushrooms into the other vegetables, and we will lose some of the delicious colour and flavour of the roast vegetable stock. So by making them separately, we keep the flavours separate and intact, and we don't lose any of them. So a bit of a faff, but there's reasons behind it. And those little things you do is the difference between okay food and great food. These are the stocks that we have made. I did have a spoon. Yes, I've got a spoon. So this is the vegetable stock. It's gone kind of quite, it's in an orange container, so it looks orangey, and I suppose it is because of the carrots. It tastes a little bit celery, actually. And that's the first boil from the roast vegetable stock. This one that's the mushroom stock. How much mushroom stock have we got? Yeah, so 3 litres of the vegetables, plain vegetable stock. We've got about 800 millilitres worth of mushroom stock to get out of the way so we don't knock it over. And then these two are the when we added some liquid to the roast vegetables, pure it up, and then squeeze the juice out of that. We've got about 1.8 litres of that, and then we've got what of this, and this is basically just for me, and then we've got 800 millilitres of the first roast vegetable stock, and then we've got about 300 grams worth of the pulp. So that's the pulp from the vegetable stock that we squeezed out, pureed, and then we kind of squeezed out. That's going to be used for the basis of the roast vegetable stock cube. I think I'm just going to have to nose my way through this. I suppose, yeah, I didn't want too much mushroom stock because I didn't want it to become like overly powerful. Now, this is my vegetable waste going around the compost. These are the vegetables that were the pureed up for the roast vegetables. So if we use those for the roast vegetable stock cube, I think it might be a little bit overly powerful. I don't kind of want it too powerful. So, and then that's just the stuff that didn't go through the sieve. Now I've sieved the vegetable pulp, so we get we'll have a smooth puree to form the cube out of. So what we need to do now is reduce all these down separately, and then we can give them a taste and see how concentrated they are. I think take everything down to a fifth of its normal weight, normal volume, and that will concentrate kind of quite enough, and then we can kind of have a see. Now I don't think I'm going to use, so I know what I'm doing, I'm doing two things at once here. So we're going to make the stock cube out of those, and then we're going to make the puree out of some caramelized onions, and then we're going to see how those two kind of are different. What is it? Because this doesn't, that's what I'm going to do. So reduce all these down, and then we'll take half, we'll make a roast vegetable stock cube out of half of it, and the other half will turn into get a recipe down for the fake Marmite type of thing. But we might have a play around and kind of do a bit of cross-pollination type of thing and kind of see how things turn out. But that's all that. Those are all the weights, and then so I know what the recipe will be. I have peeled and sliced some onions. I've done a kilo, so we know what the ratio, what the recipe will be. I'm not saying, I don't know if I'm going to use the full kilo, but we're just going to cook those down and caramelise them. I haven't put any oil in because I don't want any oil or fat in the finished products that I'm going to be making. So we just put some water in and some salt. The salt will start drawing the moisture out of the onions, and then when the moisture is evaporated off, they'll start to caramelise. So high heat to start off with, and then just to turn it down and just to slowly caramelise, turning them over now and again so that we get like a nice distribution of caramelisation. So that's that. And back when those are caramelised, or maybe back halfway through to kind of show the process, and then we'll reduce that stock down. Dropped meaning that the moisture has kind of come out of them. Like they've dropped in volume. That's what that means. So this is now the time when you just have to be a little bit careful and keep moving them around, because you want that equal caramelisation. If you leave them too long in the same place, they will start to burn, which is not what we want. We just want a nice caramelisation, which is where the sugars come out and they caramelise. But we'll just carry on, keep on moving it around. It would be easy if it had some fat in it, because the fat would stop it from drying out too much. Oh no, I see, this is where I go off on tangent. Like, oil isn't wet though, like a fat isn't wet. It feels wet, but it's not water's wet. Like deep frying is a dry method of cooking. Blows your mind, does that? But it's a dry method of cooking. So we just need, but a fat in there would stop it from caramelising. But we can just see there, it's just starting to caramelise on the bottom, which is what we want. but we just need to keep moving it around. So carry on, carry on, carry on, moving it around. Ideally, you kind of want to be in the kitchen doing something else at the same time, because the difference between it being okay and burning are quite quick. So this is getting to the stage where if I'm not careful, it's going to catch, and some of it's going to go a little bit too far. So that's about as far caramelized as I want to take that. So let's get, I've reduced the stock already, so let's get the stock out and divide it up into two different things that I'm going to do for this video, and then we can reduce it down with the onions, half of it, and make it into a vegetable paste. Yes, that's what we'll do. Right, so I have reduced the stocks down and split them into two, and then I've added half the caramelized onions to half this stock. I didn't want to put too many onions in that. I just can't quite remember the recipe, but I didn't want to kind of overdo it, so we'll reduce that down. We can always add those onions to this. How's it taste? Tastes good. Tastes good. It certainly could do with some lemon juice in it at some point, just to kind of make it a little bit sharp. And then we'll see about turning into a roast vegetable kind of quite puree stock type of thing, and a fake Marmite type of thing. And then we've got the other half of the stock on the back, which we're going to add 60 grams worth of the pureed vegetables to end up trying to make like a bit of a roast vegetable stock cube, which will dry out. So we'll probably end up putting those onions in there, but only when it started reducing down. We don't want it to catch or anything like that. But we'll see how that goes. Right, is that it? Yeah, so reduce that down, then add this vegetable powder to it, vegetable puree to it, and then we'll dry it out. I think we'll dry it out while we're at work. So the hot cupboard will be on at work when I'm there Tuesday. So that'll be a perfect place to kind of dehydrate that out and see if we can make like maybe a stock cube stroke powder. See how that turns out. Right, so reduce this down, reduce that down, add that to that, maybe add those to that, and then see where we are later on. Fan off. I think I'm going to add all those onions to that. I think that's going to be a wise idea. So then we know what the recipe actually is, and it's going to be a kilo of onions. Yeah, that's going to be nice. It's that'll be intensified enough. We'll just cook those down, let those hydrate a little bit, and then we'll add some lemon juice to that just to sharpen it up. And then we'll puree it, put it through a sieve so it's nice and smooth. And then we'll take half of it and see how it turns just into a concentrated roast vegetable puree. And then we'll add salt to the other half and turn it into a roast vegetable spread type of thing. Right, yes, that's that. And then we've got this on the back, which is looking like it's ready. It looks nice and caramelized, doesn't it? It's nice and dark. So we'll put this, we'll change them over so we can see what we're doing. Cooker's a mess as always. So, and then let's put this 60 grams worth of vegetable puree in, and we'll see what happens with that. It will hydrate it slightly, so I think it will go quite thick all of a sudden. Maybe not. But I don't think I really want to put, there we go. I don't really want to put more in than that, because we'll dehydrate it and then we'll rehydrate it when it's with some hot water, and if we add too much puree to it, it will become more of a vegetable puree more than a vegetable stock once we rehydrate it. Right, so carry on cooking that. Drive off as much moisture as possible. And then we'll put it into a container and let it, something that we can tip it out of, maybe into a bit of cling film or something like that, and we can cut it into blocks. And then that at the back, that's reconstituted now. Let's add in, I'll add in the lemon juice. I've got 2 lemons, so I think 2 lemons will be enough. But we'll add 1, see what happens, and then we'll add a second one. And then we'll reduce that down a little bit. No, then we'll puree it, put it through the sieve, and then we'll just dry it out in the pan just a little bit more. That's what we'll do. So we'll be back when that's dried out further. And that's had some lemon juice added to it. So that is pretty reduced. I don't want to take it any further because we'll end up burning it. And then I've pureed that and strained it through a sieve, so it's nice and fine. We will heat that up and just take it down a little bit further. But that is where I want it to be. So this is just a container with some cling film, double layer of cling film, which will just make it easier to get out. So what we'll be able to do is let it cool down, and then we'll be able to take it easily out of the container using the cling film, and then we'll be able to cut it into squares and then dehydrate it at the hot cupboard at work while we're at work and the hot cupboard's on. We might as well utilise it for something else at the same time. So don't want to waste that. And I might just boil up some water in that pan, and then we'll pick up that residue that's in the pan, and then we'll put that in something else. But that's not for this video, that's just for me not wanting to waste something. So it's very dark. So as long as it's level-ish, it'll be fine. But that's done, and I need to rush off because I'm going swimming. So let that cool down, and I'll be back when we're at work with that one. I reduced it in the pan, just keeping a medium heat on it and keeping it moving around so it doesn't catch. Put half it in the jar, so there is 220 grams in that, and there's probably a little bit more than 220 grams in here because there was residuals in the pan. And then we've got 20 grams worth of salt. I think half of that, so quite a lot of salt, but we're making a condiment which is kind of quite salty. We're making a fake. That's 14, that's 12, so a little bit more. Right, so that's 10 grams worth of salt in there, which is a lot, but we're only going to put in a small bit on toast or using it as an ingredient to enhance flavour. So we can turn the heat off because I don't want it reduced anymore, and all I really want to do is melt that salt. So keep it moving around until the salt's melted. Now I suppose I could have used free running salt and it would have melted instantly, but I don't really like using free running salt, if I'm in all honesty. I think it's got lots of things in it that aren't salt. It's got lots of other ingredients which I don't really want to be eating. I'd much rather have just pure sea salt. So how does it taste? I don't think it needs any more salt. I don't think it needs any more. But the danger is when you're using rock salt and granulated salt, or salt granules, that they don't melt when you taste it. So you taste it and it's not evenly distributed throughout the dish. So there's always that slight danger when using big granules of salt. So taste again. No, I don't think it wants any more salt in than that. Right, so jar this up carefully. I've sterilised the jar, and then we'll let it go cold. And then when the stock cubes are dehydrated, we'll do a tasty test of everything and see how it is. Right, so, do you need to make a mess of this? No, but anyway, that in there like that, lid on, and then we're back when we've dehydrated the stock cubes, but I think that's going to be a nice consistency, and it'll thicken up even more when it's cold. So, it's been in the hot cupboard for about 3 hours. It's starting to dry out. Like it lifts around the corner, but it's still pretty soft. It looks like molten lava actually. But anyway, so I don't know how long this is going to take to dehydrate. I think probably the dehydrator would be a better option for this, if I'm honest. But I'm here for a few more hours, so we'll see how we go. But I couldn't cut it up into squares because it was just too soft, and I couldn't have cooked it down anymore because it would have started to burn. So bit of a just have to wait and see type of thing. So we're looking a bit dark, aren't we? Oh, there we go. So this is looking. It took forever to dry out, and it's still not drying out. It's still a little bit soft to touch. It's dried out around the edges. I think that's just a bit of a give that up as a bad idea. I just don't think they're going to dehydrate. So it was in the hot cupboard for hours and hours and hours, and then I had it in the oven with the fan on at 75 degrees yesterday for about 3 or 4 hours. So it took too long, really. Let's see if we can cut into it. See what it looks like on the inside. It'll probably preserve. Like this, it's probably dried out enough, but I'm just not entirely sure. It probably needs to be put in a proper dehydrator, and I'm not going to buy a dehydrator. I don't dehydrate enough things. But we can cut it into cube-sized bits, and we could dry those out further. But what we will do is we'll boil up some water, and we'll do the outside. So we'll collect some bits from the outside that are properly dried up, and then we'll kind of see. It's really dark colour, which is slightly off-putting because it looks like it's burnt, but it hasn't. It's just caramelised lots and lots, but we'll see. So we'll just lost a bit under there. Let's taste it. Tastes pretty good actually. Right, and I have some toast to test this one. So this is the one that we turned into the fake Marmite type of thing. It's got a nice consistency to it. And this is the one that we put salt in. And then the other one we just left plain. So we'll add some water to that. So we'll kind of see if it's worth dehydrating it, or if it's just best off to have it as a paste and then add water to it. And we can decide if we need to put salt in it as well. I said it before, I'm probably repeating myself again. I don't like the idea of stock cubes being too salty. I'd like the option of using 2 stock cubes instead of 1 stock cube, and it not being overly salty. So I can always add a bit more salt, but I don't necessarily want to add 2 stock cubes to something so say if 1 stock cube does a pint, if I was to add a pint of stock, so if I was to add 2 stock cubes to it, it wouldn't be salty. I'd like to be able to add 2 stock cubes to the same amount of water that you add to 1, and it not be too salty. That's what I'm getting at. So how does this taste? I want a decent bit. That's lovely, and it's the right amount of salt. Could possibly go a little bit more, but that's nicer than the first batch that I made. That's really good, is that? That's really good. So I have something to eat, so I've just got back in, and then we'll boil up some water, and we'll see how that dehydrates, and that just adding a teaspoon to some hot water, see what happens with that. So we have 250 milliliters of water in there, and it's just coming up to the boil. Let's put in 10 grams worth of the dehydrated stock paste powder. Yeah, cube, and it'll take some time to melt, but we can be doing something else at the same time as it melts, and then we'll give it a taste. And then a teaspoon. So we've got the paste here, the one that hasn't been dehydrated. We've not added any salt to it. You see that's melting. Looks like good colour, isn't it? And we've got 200 milliliters worth of hot water here. Let's put in half a teaspoon. See if that melts relatively easily. It's all melted. And that's all melted kind of quite quick. Probably wants a little bit more. That's not so bad. It's getting there, isn't it? I'll turn that down. Give this a mix. Give it a taste. Now, cooking it and dehydrating it will have changed the flavour profile of it, because cooking anything and dehydrating will bring out sugars and caramelisation of the sugars. So it will have changed its flavour, but we'll just have to see what we've done and if it's interesting. It is interesting. Once more. So it's not that meaty. Doesn't taste as nice as the stock did when we'd made the stock, but it probably needs to be a lot more concentrated than that. How does that taste? That's alright. Nice. It probably needs a bit of salt in it, to be honest, and the salt would help with the what we call it process, it preserve a lot better if it had some salt in it. So that's about a teaspoon and a half, isn't it, that we've put in into 200 milliliters. So how does that taste? Nice. I don't think it needed lemon in, but we put the lemon in because of the fake thingamajig, didn't we? So a little bit of salt. So how does it taste now? Yeah, much better. It's nice, is that? Nice is that. In retrospect, I wouldn't have put the lemon in. Right, so that's almost melted. That's a much nicer, darker colour, but the dark colour might be down to the caramelisation of the sugars in the drying it out process. So let's try and save washing it up. See, that's much nicer. That's much nicer. So that's probably because it's more concentrated. So a little bit of salt in there. I mean, that was vegan, wasn't it? Which, if something just happens to be vegan, that's one thing. I wasn't intentionally making something vegan. That's nice stock, is that? That's nice stock, is that? So let's wrap this up. In all honesty, I think probably making it as a paste is probably a better idea. Dehydrating it seems to be a bit of a faff, even though, you know, you kind of get like an interesting result. I mean, there's not many stocks that taste like that. Making it fresh and keeping it fresh and using it straight away is probably your best bet. But if you want to have a go at preserving and making your own stocks, like a vegetable stock, you can do it, you know, and that's not going to take up a lot of space. If you think about how much veg we had and what we did with it, that, you know, there was a lot of veg and a lot of liquid, and we've taken it down to that kind of amount. So what would there be about? Like a kilo and a half? Or was it a kilo? Maybe like a kilo and a half worth of vegetables, and we've concentrated down to that, so that doesn't take up much room at all. So if we could dehydrate it off, dry freeze it, even better. But I haven't got any of that kind of equipment. But an interesting experiment all the same, and it's certainly, you can make stock cubes. You know, need to dry them out further. You know, it's like cut it into cubes and then dry it out further. Once you get to that stage when it's more manageable, then cut it down into cubes like that kind of size, and dehydrate it further, and it will reconstitute. You know, give it a boil up, and it takes up much less room. So, I suppose if you're struggling for freezer space or jarring space, then you can do that. But there we go. Interesting. And I've learnt a few things. So therefore,